come here often? Well, I do. Hello humans and occasional alien. I'm here today, I'm Liv. I'm here today with a video about how to make a macrame plate hanger, okay, start over. Plant hanger, just like that one up there. I like these because I think they're really cute and it's that perfect touch of 70s, you know what I'm saying? That groove. And I like plants, so perfect combination. It is not as hard as you think it is, and you can do it too. You ready to get naughty with me? Because we're making macrame. These plant hangers are obviously really cool for hanging plants, like viney plants. This is the one I have in mind right now. You can kind of see it. I mean, should I take it down? Do it for the vine. Do it for the vine. Okay, one sec. Oh, don't try this at home, kids. Oh, okay. Essentially, this is the gist of what you're gonna make. I guess I should show you guys. I should redo this when it's done, right? And show you guys the one I make. Well, okay, never mind. I'll put it back now. Oh god. Like my video if you appreciate my, I don't know. Comment down below for anything. Subscribe if you want to see me put this back. Share this with your friend if you breathe air. Let's get on with it. Did you think I was gonna... Did you flinch? Because I'll do it again. Oh, skills. Now I'm saying. Hey, pop it out. Okay, enough of that. That probably doesn't look the best, but okay. Do like a cool outro, like a. There's really only two things you need for this tutorial. The first is, of course, some macrame yarn or braiding yarn. I think that's braiding cord, yarn, rope, anything of this sort, you know, anything of that sort. I got this big fat boy at the thrift store for $5, but I think it was half off Saturday, so maybe $2.50. But yeah, I thought it'd be perfect because it's cheap and they're more expensive at the craft store, but really essentially all I'm trying to say is you need one of these, and you also need a ring. He went to Jared. No, I'm just kidding. You need a ring so that it could hang on stuff. So really, two things. Oh, I guess technically you need scissors to like cut it, but like who doesn't have scissors? Exactly, everybody has scissors, okay? And if you're Edward Scissorhands, then you're in luck because this is a time for you to shine. Alright folks, it's time to get cracking, and Edward Scissorhands is shaking. God. Okay, so the first step we need to do is to measure out a really long piece of cord, about 3 times as your wingspan, maybe 2 times of you standing with your arm up, or about 8 to 10 to 12 times wrapped around your forearm. I don't know, mine ended up being about approximately 12 to 14 feet. So take that into consideration. And next thing we need to do is cut out 2 short pieces of thread about 1.5 to 2 feet long, or about 1 arm span across, or 1 arm finger to shoulder. Keep in mind, y'all, I'm 6 feet tall, so I'm large. So now we need to cut 7 more long pieces And we're going to do this by using the first piece we cut as a guide with the rest of the ball of tangled mess, and find the same end point so that they're all more or less the same length. And as you can see here, I've cut out 2 identical really long pieces of cord. Next thing we're going to do is repeat that process 6 more times. I can't math. And so we have 8 pieces of cord that are really long and 2 pieces of shorter cord. As you can see, dropped it. As you can see here, we have a giant thing of cord and 2 little small cords, and this is what it'll look like when you're all done. Okay, and after that, the next step is to take the ring and to feed all the thread through that little ring. It might take some finessing and some zhushing to get that long thread all the way through there, but it's okay, I believe in you. And this is what it'll look like when I get it all through. Next step is to make sure all the ends are even at the bottom. And now we just need somewhere to hang it so that we can work off of it. Okay, now that we found the perfect place, we are going to do probably the hardest part of this whole tutorial. And we're just going to take the smaller strand of cord that we cut out, and we're just going to lay it across the grain of the rest of the cord with one end hanging up and the other looped down below to make sort of a U shape. And you're just going to want to get this nice and situated and make sure you have a firm grasp with your left hand on all the strands. So as you can see here, I'm using my thumb to kind of hold it in place. And the next thing you want to do is wrap the rest of the longer piece of the cord around the whole apparatus. And you're going to want to wrap it pretty dang tight. So as you can see here, I'm just working my way around, making sure my tail is still exposed at the top and I still have a U exposed at the bottom. And I'm just working my way around about 8-ish times. I don't know, I can't count people. But when we're done wrapping it around to the desired length, I am threading the tail bit through our loop piece by using my index finger and thumb and just securing that down. Next thing we're going to do is take the top bit that we left out and start to pull it so that it snatches that part up. And this is going to require some muscle strength depending on how tight you wrap it around. And I did mine pretty tight. So as you can see, I'm trying to pull it up here. I'm hoping that the tail end will completely disappear, but that all depends on how long it was when it came in. But don't worry if yours is not, you can always cut it down at the end. But now I'm just really giving it a good tug, and I'm gonna tap into my swollenness. But yeah, if you need to, feel free to pause and replay this part a couple times so you get the hang of it. It might take a couple tries of practice just to get the look you're going for. But yeah, it's not that hard. Just work through it and you got this. I believe in you. Anyways, as you can see here, I'm almost done with that tail bit and it's almost all the way through. So I give it one more good yank and it's completely tucked away and I really like that look. So I only have one tail bit left, and the only thing I do now is I take my good trusty dusty scissors and I cut that bit really, really short, right next to the part where we wrapped around so that you can barely see. Don't worry about it fraying too much because it will be tucked away. But yeah, and once you're done, you could just smooth everything out and this is what it looks like. As you can see, we have bit wrapping around and you could kind of see where it hides itself within each other, and it's just really cool, I think. Okay, now it's time to make the classic knots that you see on about every piece of macrame, and that is the square knot. So we're going to do this by sectioning off 4 strands from the rest of the macrame, and we only need the 2 outside strands to actually make the knots on this, but we're going to go over the 2 middle ones. So first, we bring the left over in a triangle-like fashion, put the right over that strand and under the 2 middle strands and through the hole on the left strand. And I know that sounds complicated, but don't worry, I will slow it down for you guys to make sure that you understand and that you get it. And now we just need to repeat that process opposite on the left side. So bring that right over, bring the left over that and under the 2 strands and through the hole of the right strand that we brought over in the first place. And after I pull that long bit through, I'll slide it all up, and that equals 1 square knot. So you have to do 1 knot on each side in order to make one. The easiest way I find to do this is to hold the 2 in my hand and cross the right over the left and then put the right through the hole of the left. And that's the easiest way for me to remember how to do this knot. And once you get the hang of it, your hands will just work on their own essentially. So now I'm doing it on the other side by putting the left over the right, flipping it and pulling the left through the hole of the right strand. And after I pull that through, I'm just tightening it up and trying to keep the same tautness throughout. And so as you can see here, I made about 2 knots. And now I'm bringing it down to the floor to give you guys a closer look. I'll bring the left over the 2 in the middle, the right over that strand, and pull the right through the hole of the left in back of the 2 middle strands. And then I'll slide that bit all the way through, slide it up on our 2 middle working strands, and that'll make 1/2 of a square knot. And now I'll do it on the other side by bringing the right strand over the 2 middle, the left over that strand, and pulling the left in back of the 2 middle strands through the hole of the right strand. And it sounds complicated in words, but in rope knots, it's not that complicated. So feel free to take your time and to really watch the strands and to play this back a couple times if you don't understand. Because once you get this knot, pretty much every other knot is pretty easy. So yeah, that's what it'll look like. I just did 1 knot. Also, another little tip here, if you mess up, you can pull the sides of the square knot on the left and the right and just pull it apart like that, and you could undo it if you messed up. So here I am just flash finishing the rest of this, and I measure how long I made it by counting the edges of the knots so that I could repeat that on the next strand of 4 strands, the next strand of 4 strands. Yeah, the next clump of 4 strands, I mean. So now I'm just counting to make sure they're all the same length, and I'm grabbing each 4 strands and keep working down there. I'll end up having 4 clumps of knots because there's 16 strands of yarn. And so yeah, that's essentially it. Here I am working all the way down and trying to keep the same tightness all throughout. And here's what it'll look like when I have them all done. As you can see here, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-ish knots per 4 strands. So I have 4 strands of 12 knots in total, and you can see how it kind of takes form already. And yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Hey. Yeah, I can't really explain what I was doing there. But now we're going to add our second section of knots. And as you can see here, our outside strands are way shorter than our middle strands. So what we need to do is flip those so that our middle strands are now our outside knotting strands, and our outside strands are now our inside strands. Whoa, that's a tongue twister. Anyway, so once I have those flipped, I start again by making 1 square knot, pulling it through, crossing it over, pulling it through, going on the other side, crossing it over, pulling it through. And before I make that second knot to complete 1 complete knot, you know what I mean, I am adjusting where I want it to sit because I want a gap of no knots, so like just exposed cord between the 2. And so then I make 1 knot, to secure it in place. And then I'm going to go in with what I like to call the DNA knot. And it's just a square knot, but you only use one side of the crossover. So you don't have to switch opposite sides. So right here you can see I'm only crossing over with my right. It's just easier for me because I'm right-handed. And I'll just keep going on that. And once you keep going, after a while, you can see that it's kind of starting to take a spirally, swirly DNA helix type of shape. And after going for a while, you may realize that the top also kind of turns on you, but you could just pause what you're doing and unturn your work so that it's flat facing you, and just still continue with that one side again so that you make sure that it's all twisting the same way. And here's what it'll look like after a bit of going, and a bit of knotting, and you'll see that spiral start to take place. Here I am just furiously working to finish the rest of the knots on the other side, just cross-referencing to make sure that I start the knot sequence on the same level as the other strand. And that's all I got finished for that day. Hey guys, it's day 2 on my macrame project. And no, it doesn't take 2 days. I just got distracted and started cooking a 5-course meal after I got halfway through. So this is our progress so far. We just have 2 sections of knots. The DNA knots, that's what I like to call them. The DNA knots, and then the regular square knots. And now I just have to finish the rest and do some netting down here, and we'll be done. And it's so nice out that we're gonna go outside and do crafts. And I know earlier there's a joke about hanging it up outside, but we're gonna actually try to do that because it's like 60 degrees and I need some vitamin D. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, here we are. Let's go outside. Sun shining, birds chirping, axis tilting, seasonal depression leaving. Let's go. Macrame, macrame. Okay, yeah, that one was too far. I was trying too hard. All right. And here's proof that I finished the other 2 working strands of my macrame, in case you didn't believe me. Nobody talks about this, but I don't know if it's my makeshift workspace, but like I get sore from doing macrame because I'm like holding my arms and I get sore. Hopefully I'll get swole by the end of this. Ah, yeah. Ah, yeah. Ah. Okay, thankfully whatever that was is over. Now I decided to resume my knot sequence by doing a square knot and leaving a gap. It's up to you however you want to do it. Just make sure to swap the inside and the outside strands periodically so that they're around the same length when you get all done. And so I'm just resuming with a square knot to however far I like it all the way down, essentially. And this is what it looked like when it's done. I have a couple knot sequences. One thing to keep in mind when you're going is keep an eye on how much you have left, because you're going to have to put a pot in there and it's going to make a sort of basket effect. So that's one thing just to keep in mind while you are being naughty. Okay, so the next step in our macrame plant holder is to make the net part where the plant / pot will actually sit, or whatever you want to hold in there. So the best way I found to keep in mind like the spatial awareness with like the edges and the knots is to find a prop to use as a guide. I mean, I guess you could use a pot, but I'm using a pumpkin. Now for the part that actually holds the pot and or a pumpkin, I'm kind of using it as a guide to see where I want the knots to fall. And all I do is take 2 strands from each neighboring clumps of knots and using those 4 strands to make 1 square knot each. And then I'll turn my work and share the 2 strands with the next 2 strands and make another knot so that when it ends up, it'll be all netted together. Kind of like when you had that like old hairstyle when you were in middle school and like you did little ponytails to each little ponytails and like you split. Am I the only one who did that? Or who wanted to do that? I wasn't that cool, but yeah. Anyways, I'm just working and cross-referencing. It'll take some finessing to make sure all of them are around the same length. Then I put the pumpkin back in there to see where I want my second set of knots to sit, and then I repeat that process on the second set of knots. After finishing that and putting the pumpkin back in there, I decided I want a third row of knots. You don't have to. You can size whatever pot you want, essentially. But I decided to add a third row of netting knots. That's also a tongue twister. Anyway, so I'm doing that same process, trying to make sure that they're all the same length. I'm just really eyeballing it. I mean, I guess you could use a ruler if you're like really anal, but yeah. Anyways, this is what it will look like when it's done. And the next step is to take that second short piece we cut out a long time ago and repeat that first step, well, the top step of the macrame, and secure it off like that. You could cut that long tail off, and you could leave the bottom strands different lengths if you're a sociopath, or you could cut them all even like me and have one random little short one. Who knows why, and it kind of bugged me. Anyways, I also spent an exorbitant amount of time pulling apart all the little threads so it makes a nice frizzy and puffy look. I hope that word made me sound smart, but I lost some brain cells doing this for like 30 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I really like that poofy look, so it's up to you whether you want to do it or not, but I think it's a nice touch. And once you're done styling it to your liking, you are done. Like, you are done. And this is a time to rejoice and also time to cue the montage. My arms. Oh, jeez. Okay. Huh? You can make it. Crafting in the nature, crafting in the nature. Yeah. Crafting outside. Making stuff while the sunshine is shining on me. Getting naughty, yeah. Gonna put a plant in this bit, yeah. Gonna hang it up on my ceiling and get litty, yeah. I should really stop because this is kind of really bad. Ah, I feel that. That's the feeling of the Earth's axis tilting. Well, you know it's always like, but it just goes around the sun. And you know, when you live in the northern hemisphere, yeah. I got new plants. I got new plants. I got new plants. Yeah. Oh, I gotta stretch out because I'm so sore after all these knots. Do you work out, bro? Well, I do. I'm not.